All right, I've got Inchon here with me for this episode, episode 10, special episode. Um, Inchon, you want to go ahead and say hello?
Yeah, hey guys.
So, Inchon has opted not to play because he wants to focus more on the conversation and everything, so he is actually enjoying a drink. What are you drinking, Inchon?
I was gonna say I know it's not this we can't count this as Hell Let's Talk episode 20, but in true YouTube HL content form, having a half a glass in my hand, and actually tonight is Tears Leilona, a little tequila, a little sipping tequila. So I thought this might be a spicy one, so let's kick it up a notch.
All right. So, I always started off with what were you doing before Hell Let Loose?
So before Hell Let Loose, I was actually kind of a miss in the PC gaming world. Um, I've had a couple anchor games I would call that I really enjoyed. Battlefield 2 when I was a little bit younger. Life got busy, right? World of Warcraft, World of Tanks, and when I had my kids, kind of um, and I went back to grad school, put gaming aside, and was kind of getting more free time looking for something. And I tried out War of Rights, the Civil War game, and y- got with a community in there and just showing up doing the things. And then a few guys were like, "Hey, you gotta check out this Hell Let Loose game." And like I tried Postscriptum, I was like, dude, I don't think I'm gonna be into it. But I found like a copy for like 16 bucks.
Hmm.
So downloaded it, and I still remember. I mean, my first match of HL was Old Herkin Forest, and I mean, it just immediately. It's probably bad that I remember my first match of HL more than I remember like my first date with my wife. Granted, that was like 14 years ago, and this was only 4 years ago. But it was Old Herkin Forest, Scar. I remember spawning in, the sounds, the cracks of the rifles. I like cowered behind this burning half track, one of the asset vehicles, and just being like, "What is going on?" Saw my first bombing run, and I was just like, and immediately I was hooked. So I think I played like one or two more like organized battles with War of Rights, and I was like, "See, guys, I'm doing this." And that's one of those games that like, when you get into a brand new game, you all of a sudden realize it's like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You got to go to work in the morning. You're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I this." So yeah, HL hooked me like that pretty quickly.
So, after you get involved with HLL, what was the first community you joined, and like how long were you riding solo before you got involved with one?
So it wasn't long after my first match I actually ran into Double O Douche, and he was like the first one that really had like mentored me in the way of squad leading and game mechanics. And like a lot of other people in this game, we all got mentored or learned from somebody else. So double o and o double o and I like gamed up every day. We had a friends list. We had like Texas Red, the real thing, a bunch of other kind of guys. And before we know, we had a kind of a group about, I don't know, 8 or 9 of us that was consistently squatting up just off a Steam friends list. And I was like, man, there's got to be more to this. So I started looking out at different communities, and that's when Godsend just recently put out his first video about organized comp, and it was HLTC versus MPA. Um, I really liked the content that Hell at Loose Training Camp was putting out. It was a great message of say we're here to help train the community. Really kind of positivity. So I reached out to them and was like, hey, I got me and a group of my friends. We love to get involved. What's it take? And that's how we got into HLTC.
What was it like in HLTC? Did you learn a lot there, and like was there like competition, and pretty much what was it
Yeah,
all about?
yeah. So I did the first two. So I've been involved in every seasonal that has been held. And the first two was with HLTC, and It started out as just a guy showing up and, how do we play this and what's going on. Abinus was just creating kind of the 18v18 format for like internal practices. They had this internal team, sword and shield, if you will, and really got to be humbled by a lot of great players. Sergeant Rico, Soviet Slug, So Lucky. The list goes on and on. I mean, guys I still game with: Takahara, Shaka Zulu, and then Abinus, who I think is on the upcoming series, really kind of had the um, opened the eye to what kind of the strategic aspect of what the meta could be. And I mean, at that time, the meta was nebulous at best, right? And I felt like, kind of by just sitting back and listening, there was a lot of things that we could pick up from HLTC.
So how long were you in HLTC for?
So I was in HLTC right here. Everyone wants to know. So what went wrong? um, I was gonna say, wait, we'll try to hold it to. I've already one glass of tequila in for tonight. We'll try to hold it to just two. But anyway, no, I was in HLTC for the better part of a whole year, and they had a very good kind of like mentoring rank structure, and you get kind of pulled in. And as I was active in the community, I really wasn't looking for anything leadership, because previously when I led a Esprit de Corps in World of Tanks, it just took up so much of my time, and I found myself administrating the game more than playing the game, and I wasn't looking for that, right? um, but was willing to help us, wanted to learn the game mechanics. I remember a lot of time in the training camp that we would jump in and figure out how the scoring system worked, right? How cap mechanics work. Started helping with videos, which actually got me into the Hell Let's Talk podcast when I was over there. Started generating the new player guide, which we'll kind of talk about later. But and as I was moving up, I was really, really excited more and more in comp. Well, right around, I would say, April, I don't remember, of 2021. So I got into the game February 2020, and then about April 2021, um, the HLTC leadership, kind of started fracturing. I think with maybe somewhat burnout. Um, Godsend actually stepped aside, and I feel like he was really kind of the heart and soul of a lot of the positive energy, right, of there. Some of the like leadership kind of turned sour in the game, bragging about deleting, I'm uninstalling it and talking about all this sort of stuff. And um, with that burnout, we just there was fewer matches. And now, granted, when I say fewer matches, this is the time when comp HL, like, you were happy to get a match like once a month, right? Like, if it wasn't
Hmm.
a seasonal, like there was no um, APL, ECL. It was seasonal and maybe some scrimmages here and there. And with the burnout, it just kind of we kind of lingered, and I was still hungry for more comp. Um, but we went kind of through the summer, if you will, and got to the tail end. And there was at the time I was also broadcasting matches.
Hmm.
Um, and this is before admin cam came out, so it was interesting. Like just looking at the maps and then getting admin cam. And the I think it was the Greyhounds Cup or the Summer League of 2021. TC declined on that. I forget, there might have been something else that there may be some miscommunication on whether we weren't invited as HLTC or we declined. There was concerns, okay, could we even have the numbers? The summer of 2021 was really, I think, a low point for this game. There was a lot of frustration about update 8. Update 9 wasn't coming. People were waiting. The updates were coming longer and longer. The actual release with the Russians was delayed.
What was update 8, by the way? Like, what all did that bring in?
Update 8 is, God, I have to go back to my show notes of Hell Let's Talk. I want to say update 8 um, brought back the red zone garrison in Carentan. I'm sure someone will fact check this one. But I want to say that was, hell, I could probably search it right now. But that was kind of like that content, the last kind of content that we had. And then update 9 was really like quality of life. I think the INI file got locked, which was huge. Thank you, Spit from the squad community for showing that. And then I think the biggest thing of update 9 was the barbed wire, which nobody really paid attention to until it was real. That's like OPs got shrank, things of that nature. It was kind of funny, but
Mm.
it was there was just this growing frustration with the developers that we went from getting new updates, every 2 to 3 months to every update broke something and hot fixes weren't coming quick enough, and it was voice over IP is it's gonna sound funny because it's almost the same frustrations and perspectives that people have now. All this was in full force in 2021 with a player base that was a fraction of the size of what it is today, right? But for a multitude of reasons, whether it be God sent left, this, we there just wasn't that drive, and HLTC was going through kind of a transition phase where they wanted to come from just a singular focus game to get into a multi-focus gaming community, and that's when they dropped HL and just went to the training camp. And I really wasn't feeling it. I was kind of feeling, like my time that I'm putting in this, and I was running the podcast and everything. I was like, man, I really want to get more comp focused, and I don't see the training camp heading that way. Um, and I went to the leadership. I said, hey, I think I'm going to leave. And they said, hey, give us 30 days. We're going to have different game leaders. We want you to be involved with that. And I'm like, okay. At that time, we um, we're talking in with the developers, Black Matter, and working the new player guide. Talking about, they really wanted to have a stronger present with HLTC and content. This is right when, before the days of everybody having streamers, right? They were just creating that war correspondent program, and they wanted more HLTC involvement. And HLTC was like, "Nah, we're kind of done with this, right? We're really not that interested." And 30 days went by. Um, there was not enough change to kind of for what I saw, being a value use of my time, and worked on, finding a new avenue to focus on competitive HL. There was some other kind of bricks in the backpack, I would say, that just kind of weighed on it. And, it wasn't a singular one. There was um, one of the leaders, whether intentional or not intentional, kind of was making fun of military service, and that didn't sit well with me. Um, I I think maybe no one's perfect at communication. I probably miscommunicated a few times. There was ideas, when I was trying to run the Pro Bowl, the All Star game, whether that was HLTC doing that, whether it was me, and I'll admit that I was probably more uh, all force no vector type of situation.
Mm.
It would have been easy to to lead myself at the time. I don't know. I definitely look back at that and see that I made faults. Um, And probably one of the biggest ones was, instead of just having kind of like a clear break, a lot of the guys that we were gaming with, day in, day out, or night in, night out on HLTC, I said, "Hey guys, I'm thinking of leaving." And people are like, "Well, what, what's going on?" And my whole thing is I didn't want to take away from HLTC, um, to try to build whatever for what we were going to do, with what eventually became a spray decor. I fully believe that if you don't have to push someone down to make yourself taller, right?
Hmm.
A rising tide lifts all ships. Um, in um, a poor moment of we were go back to Double O douche. Double O was very motivated about this, of starting something new. At that time, he was streaming. We were talking while playing game. Somebody watches his stream, says, "Hey, do you know Inchon is, talking about leaving the community? In fact, it's right now on stream." I got pulled in by Avidus, and they basically said, "Hey, effective immediately, you're done." And I said, "You know what? You're right." And there's a, I said, "Yeah, I told you 30 days ago I was leaving. 30 days has passed. I'm not happy with this. I'm transitioning out." However, to ensure that they could maintain, and I didn't want to be viewed as, "Oh, well, I'm leaving and um, there's something, wrong with HLTC." There was nothing wrong with HLTC. It just wasn't, um, what I wanted to do with my gaming time, right? Um, I said, "You can control all the messaging. I will not, discuss it." And granted, this is coming up on 3 years ago, and I guess I'm discussing it now.
Hmm.
I remember that one of their leaders, she was very, very, heartfelt, where because you gotta remember during my HLTC day, this was going through COVID, right? And gaming during COVID was a very impactful moment for a lot of these people because that was, for many of us, the only interaction we had. And, she said, "Hey, if anybody does follow you, take care of our friends, right? Do not let our friends down." And I've remembered that to this day. And I like to think that I've honored her request. I'm sure that it wasn't, it wasn't positive necessarily on either side during, just like anytime you fire an employee or you have to separate with an employee, right? It's never a call that a manager or, a meeting you want to have with the employee. But, um, they saw me leaving. We decided to expedite it, and within 48 hours, a Esprit de Corps was generated. And I stayed silent. I really did not want to take away from HLTC. Obviously, there was people that were asking. There was a set of core group of about 12 of us that came over, and a little bit later, some more that we didn't talk to joined. There was, "Hey, Inchon talked to this person, but I didn't talk to this person," and a lot of that was just like, "Hey, who did I game with, day in, day out with?" Um, and I know there was a lot of people that felt that I betrayed HLTC. Um, but like for me, it was getting the most out of my gaming time. And like I said, there's just one too many bricks in that backpack, and I just wanted to focus on a more simple relationship with HL, if you will. So yeah, that was HLTC.
So, who were some of the people that followed you from HLTC to ESPT?
So we could, I was gonna say double O, was, one of them. Dash 30 Texas Red, like I said on the friends list there. Digi Shadow, who was another high ranking member of HLTC. Um, Shaka Zulu came over, Takahara, T-Raw, and then there was a few other guys that came. Um, like some of the new guys that I wound up like kind of recruiting. They're like, hey, you, you recruited me. If you're going to be part of this art community, then follow. Um, so that was some of the names. So a lot of the games here, and I know when we formed this community, one of the biggest things that we had was that we wanted our leadership to still be active in the game. And if you weren't active in the game, you shouldn't be in a position of leadership.
Hmm.
Because there was a lot of people that we looked at HLTC's leadership that, like I said, were actively dissing the game or were completely inactive trying to make decisions. So a lot of those names I just mentioned out are, still active in the game, still leaders in our community and enjoying it. So
So when you started up Esprit, how did that timeline kind of go? Like, what was going on at the time, like the seasonals and the other competition and the people that you kind of teamed up with?
yeah, so we started July 6th, 2021. So we're coming up on 3 years now. And I want to say like update 10 was within a week or two, right? And we kind of just was like, hey, let's get this going. Let's use the momentum of the update, people coming back to check this out. And every update has a little bit of a surge of activity. Let's see if we can't ride the surge to possibly recruit new members, new people coming to the game, new people trying the game out with it being a full release. Um, and we know that we wanted to compete in organized 50v50. So at the beginning, we were just like a ragtag group of a dozen, and if we played with you in our squad, we told you about us, join our Discord, and in fact, our first true recruit was Ravers. Um, that's still with us, and it was very much kind of like that local bar mentality that we had. A lot of us were playing the game, and we looked for communities that kind of also shared that same positive approach to the game. And we actually wound up pairing with KRT for a little bit. In fact, I think our first match that we ever did was against TLBR1, and we actually had KRT helping us out. It was actually Kursk, because it was a brand new map, right? I was like, "Hey, let's try the new map," and, we were Russians because we thought Russians might be overpowered. We were wrong, but it actually went for us on that one. So, yeah, within, about a month, we had enough with KRT to fill that, and then, we started looking for who else was kind of a similar size to us that we could pair up to do 50/50s. 49v49s, and that's when we kind of got into Goff. Um, so Goff was and Muck Snapper, right? So, uh, which was a great interview that you had.
Hmm.
Tip of the hat to you. And Goff it's kind of funny because Goff split off from uh, MPA, or Team Dix, which renamed to MPA. And I remember looking, like, at these golf guys, and I was like, who are these guys?" And every match we played, they were where we wanted to be. They were playing the map right. They were pubbing like we were, didn't have a server, and, eventually I figured it out and reached out to Muck, and Muck actually broadcasted a match with Muck on Old St. Marie Dumont. We struck it up. I'm like, "Dude, this guy has got a lot of passion, a lot of positivity for the game." And, we started, um, pairing up, and we went against core and didn't get 5-0'd, so it was a huge thing for us, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it was just like, okay, this could work out. And you know uh, Muck's whatever you want to say about Muck, his passion for anything that he sets his mind to, cannot be matched. And he is the best salesman for golf. He's on there. He's a lot, and we kind of joked, and I said, we're more like the local bar. You guys are like the rugby house. And he embraced it. He loved it. But he wanted, let's take on core every week. Let's take on WTH. It's us against the world, and it was a lot. It was a lot of force, and there was at the time it was just too volatile for where we were in a community. I remember there was one night him and I were actually talking about what a spree and Goff merger would look like.
Hmm.
But between him and Sneaky, and myself and T-Raw, we kind of mad scientist workshop, and then it would kind of all change with at 4 a.m. in the morning. Okay, I can't change this, and we're like, man, this isn't what we want to do with our guys. So a lot of our focus goes on respecting time, much like kind of reason why I left HLTC. And if we're changing strats and changing this, it doesn't show our players that we respect their time. Um, so that put a strain on it. There was an individual that Goff released that was friendly with us, and that further created the divide. And sadly, it was right before the winter 2021 or fall 2021 seasonal, and we made the decision kind of mutually. Well, technically, Goff broke up with us, but I think we all saw the writing on the wall. And Muck and I have talked about this, and I'd love to have a beer with him and rehash it with a good glass. But we decided to split before that seasonal a week before, and then that's at that time, Goff was the first one to leave MPA, and then OPBHB left NPA. So the two powerhouses of the NA scene from 2020, basically from the start of the game till summer of 2021, being NPA and HLTC, had divisions come off of it. Um, and OPBHB was fresh off their split of coming out of MPA, and we were right around like 30, 35 members at that time after about 3 or 4 months of recruiting. And we said, hey, do you guys want to come in, do the seasonal with us? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And so with the Goff relationship soured, we pulled in OBHB and was able to do our first seasonal. So love you, Muck.
How'd that seasonal go?
It went well. I mean, we felt like we had something going, but the big question was how much of it was the pairing that we had with Goff when we were doing good showings against Core and WTH, and or how much was with our player skill. And I still remember the worst ass kicking I've ever gotten or received was handed to me by Core on Utah. We were allies, and I think it was like the second seasonal match, and I think we lost in like 26 minutes. I mean, it was just we didn't even know how to have a review. We're like, we just got like there was MG fire everywhere, there was tanks everywhere. We're back on the beach, and I'm just like, oh, okay, we got work to do, right? Just like, wow, that is top level play. And um, I remember there was a few guys that it was like their first game, and we're like, yeah, it hasn't all been like that. But we wound up going and battling for fifth place, and it just whatever the stars align. It we just so happened to pair up against TL, who at that time paired up with TC. So it was a little bit of a story written game. A lot, obviously, going against your previous team. There's a lot of emotions on that. It was SME, and um, We got pushed back 1-4 and then took back the second point. At that time, previously with Goff, we learned about the ability of a 10-man OP. So we implemented it on that game and got back the chapel, lost the chapel, got it back, and then wound up winning that for fifth place in our first seasonal. And I want to say that seasonal there was like, I don't know, 24 teams or 16. It wasn't the large ones, if you will.
Right.
So so yeah, it was 16 teams. Sorry, I just looked it up. So we got fifth out of 16 teams in that seasonal. And then feeling proud of ourselves, we went against TL a couple weeks later, and TL, we did not realize how their power on Foy, and then we got 05 against TL on Foy. Like it was very humbling, right? And so yeah, no, we did that. That was our first season. We stayed one more season with OPBHB. Was able to repeat our success of getting into the playoffs, but get knocked out in the quarterfinals. I want to say that was probably like WTH or somebody that knocked us out. I can't quite remember that one.
Was that the seasonal that TL went to the finals, or was it the seasonal before that?
That was, you're right. So yeah, so that was the seasonal where oh man, you're bringing up bad memories here. Talk about being humbled. So yeah, so we go through the winter, and we beat 116th 5-0. We get 5-0 by WTH, get sent to the lower brackets. It's us and TL to like make the finals, and then we 5-0 TL on St. Marie Dumont. And that was our first time seeing a cross tank or cross map snipe on RD, right? But we were able to counter it live and shut down that tank. And we're like, okay, well, let's go play Hurricane Forest. There's no way they could have a tank snipe on Hurricane. Wall drops, Texas Red is on Artie, and he goes, I'm off Artie. We're like, what? The wall just dropped. He's like, yep, can't get on it. Not happening. And by the time we figure out where their tank was, I mean, it was North Pass. Yeah, I remember talking with Coltrane afterwards. Like, I think we did a post-game interview, and I was like, we had one time we were up to like 90% cap on North Pass after like 80, 75 minutes of grinding. They roll in their two tanks, put the cap weight on, we stall out, we in, and yeah, they went on to the finals on that one. That was a solid team for them, and um, yeah, no Artie on North Pass really hurt. I remember that was one where I just kind of, because we just felt so confident against them on St. Marie Dumont. Um, and then to come back and lose that one stunk.
Right.
But that was also with us in BHB during that season too. I would say that second seasonal we continued to grow and add people. On the tail end of that one, there was OPBHB and us naturally are constrained by the 49 members that you can field on a roster, and BHB kind of always had an OP, kind of uh, informally had a BHB would run defense, OP get like 4 or 5 other slots, and as we recruited more and more, we try to say, hey, let's put the best person forward for this regardless of what part of the alliance they're in. And that caused friction. They also changed who their comp leader was, from Madcap to Strikeout, if I remember correctly. And there was some communication differences and styles that was happening there that kind of conflicted. And at the end of that seasonal, at North Pass, we kind of said, hey, this will be the last seasonal we work as Esprit OPBHB, and OPBHB went on their way, and then we headed into the summer. kind of running short again. But yeah, so that was heading into the summer of 2022.
The summer of 2022. So that's actually right around when I started playing,
Yep.
like fully playing.
Yep.
So moving on from then, how did you get to the point where you're able to field a full 49 for the matches?
Yeah, so and it really just came to after that. We said, we're just going to be active. We had a lot of friends that would come work for us, but we just kept running matches, kept running matches. We had a couple recruits come in from some other communities. That to me was probably a little bit less prestigious, if you will. And during this time too, we were looking around and really coming back from that HLTC roots. There's always been this idea of helping to mentor either individuals or different organizations. And some of these organizations that we were mentoring, when their leadership kind of would get burned out, they would come over and join us. Um, and so like TA was when they folded, there was a few members that came from TA over to us, um, and a few others here and there. Um, but a lot of it was just we used to call it 4-2 squads. We would do 4 spree players and 2 guests, and when you were in the squad, if at the end of the game we liked you, we said, "Hey, why don't you come play with us?" We do comp, and that's really when we got into that rhythm that summer of running a comp match every single weekend. And I think essentially since that summer, we've done a match nearly every single weekend. Actually, I got this here. Um, we have, as a community, since our foundings, been in 151 comp matches, not including 18v18s. So
It's a pretty hefty amount.
I will not tell you how many Excel has been in out of that 151. He knows it, but we will let that be. That guy's a beast.
I think I know it. I'm pretty sure, or close to it anyway.
So, but yeah, so we got that, and then also this is the time when uh, in the previous seasonals when we were in the team captains and whatnot, um, there was the Chinese community was just starting to get involved, whether it be CNUT or Trigger, whatever version was that, and we were a very big proponent for them, of expanding it out, not just looking at them being, oh, you're an Asian player, you must be cheating, or the stereotypes. And the way the Asian community worked, and I think still does, I don't know the details, is it's really like this friends list, much like the same way that we came to HLTC, a friends list of like, 6, 8 guys. Um, one of those friends being, they call themselves JSOC, uh,
Eric
kind of was,
Carbon,
yeah, well, Eric, Richard Walter, uh,
Yonaz, right?
yep, they,
Oh, Yonaz. Oh.
yeah, they kind of reached out and they said, "Hey, we battled really well with them when we were starting. We tried to, when anytime there was what I would consider kind of like an unfair relationship of like scheduling or whatnot, we would speak up and be like, hey, I think you guys can adjust to this. This isn't really fair to this team on the other side of the Pacific here." And that got recognized by them. So when they were looking for a new team and kind of the Asian community was fracturing, they said, "Hey, do you guys have room?" "Yes, we have room." And that's when we added that group of friends. That's also when we got the moniker of Esprit is a Chinese team, which is hilarious because, well, not hilarious, but Esprit de Corps is a French term for a North American team that now has accepted Chinese players. It's true globalization happening, right? Um, but so yeah, no, we woke them in. The funny part is a lot of those names that we just mentioned, actually lived in the United States.
Right.
So it was better ping for them, better time zone time zone for them. They still, yes, there was still members overseas. Um, and then on our own, Skafsuka was just playing on our server, kicking our ass. So we're like, dude, we got to come on over. And yeah, that's kind of how we prepared for it.
Right. Which actually, scav isn't Chinese, though, just to clarify for anyone watching, too.
Yeah, that's it's
Common misconception that I've seen in the community.
yeah. But so yeah, then we prepared for our next season, and this is kind of the funny part because like I feel like the more you're involved, the more you open yourself off to faults, right? And I'm not to say we're not without fault, but that next season coming up, it was the one of the big ones, the long ones, right? And there was like a lower league bracket that played, to be able to get to the main stage. So 5-6 weeks of matches to get to that. Well, one of the members that joined us, when we ran his Steam ID, we did everything of that nature. It looked clean. He hadn't played on any of our teams. There was no game bans. There was no back bans, anything of that nature. And so we admin cammed him. I mean, going through the recruiting process, we 3 weeks we admin cam people when they play on our server. Make sure that we feel confident rostering them, and everything looked clean. And like I said, we did the Steam ID review, and we brought him on later down during that server or that seasonal. There was a in-depth review of our every single player on our roster by an outside organization um, that cross-referenced one of those players that we picked up um, and showed that he had an alt that played for a team 6 weeks before joining us for one match. And where we went to him, he said, "Yep, I did that. Is that bad?" We're like, "Yep, that's bad. We could get kicked out of seasonal for this." So we presented, we worked with the organizers, and we said, "Yeah, we were unaware. Let's talk to them. Time zone difference." That was probably that was a key moment to me because I remember I was planning to do a normal work day, and I actually wound up calling my boss and being like, "Dude, I gotta put in a day of PTO. Like, I can't work today." And because I was like, "Oh my gosh, are we going to be kicked out of seasonal for an administrative error?" Um, and it was, and people were coming real time with questions. We are trying to answer. We're trying to get with the individual. Three was the comp leader at this time, and there's evidence, I'm using air quotes that you can't see, evidence being presented that we are trying to either confirm or deny. We had a lot more help than we ever asked for during that day. And I got to the end of it and I was just like, man, a day of PTO I could use for my family to go out or vacation or something like this. I just consumed it for a video game. And it was worth it because I think we were able to satisfactorily answer questions. Like I said, the individual was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, didn't know that." Obviously he was excluded for many seasonal matches for the rest of that seasonal. Um, but that was a moment where I'm just like, "This is a lot," right? And we got through that seasonal, knocked out quarterfinals again. Um, but
Which seasonal was that, by the way? Like, who was the opponent, I guess, that knocked you out?
Oh my gosh. See, this is why I can't game. You're gonna ask me these like hard hitting questions.
I
Uh, so that was the one where it was the fall. We started out against Chimera on Remagen
oh,
and then lost to STB. So we started 0-2 that seasonal. So it was memorable. And then we wound up beating Raptors on Stalingrad right before the break. And then that season actually had a break over Christmas that then we picked back up and then played after the holidays. So, but yeah, so that seasonal, I don't remember who knocked us out. I want to say we got like six. That was the 34. That was the 34 player one because they had that big tailwind play-in bracket
Mm-hmm.
beforehand. So like the fall 2022 seasonal, if I remember correctly. So
Okay, so I think fall 2022 um, was the first seasonal match that I watched, and it was actually the last one. It was the final DC core.
yeah, so I think DC knocked us out, if I remember correctly, on like Hill 400. And
Mm-hmm.
what's funny about that is I remember that match was probably like, even though it was a loss, we were like, we felt like I think we got to like, once again, like 80% cap in the last 5 minutes. And the team actually walked away really motivated about that week. We finally had like, it felt, it felt like a good loss. I mean, but it felt like, man, like we know what to adjust. If you go back to like that core ass kicking that we got, right? We didn't know what the hell to do. Like it was just like, well, I guess we play more and figure it out. That one we're like, nope. I think we figured it out type deal. And really from that match as we got into 2023, really set us up for I think for a lot of success in 2023. We learned so much from DC on that match,
Mm-hmm.
which now became XD. So
Um, yeah, so I think I got recruited in, what did we say it was? It was June, I think, or somewhere around there. July,
sounds about
maybe?
right. Yeah, sounds
Yeah.
about right.
Um, but yeah, so I remember Excel had started coming over to the 75th and, was hanging out with us and, like, sharing information, which you guys had shared information with us and Otters and everything, trying to help us out. So I already had, like, a good, I guess, relationship or first impression of Esprit Corps. And
Yep.
I remember rooting for you guys in the seasonal. I remember that GBI game on Stalingrad, and then I watched WTH Hurtgen night.
Let's
Um,
not talk about that one. WT. This is what's fun. I was gonna say, I if the amount of respect that I have for WTH is just immense. The fact that they've been able to play this game at such a high level for so long, but we're at like we have never been able to beat them. They are like our
yeah.
Achilles heel, right? But we like there's very much this like paper rock scissors thing happening, and I think it's actually expanding. So what's like the Big Bang theory of like paper rocks scissors lizard Spock? That we can't beat WTH, but WTH struggles with 1/16th, but we feel confident against 1/16th. But IR can beat DC, but DC beats like it's very there's a lot of parity happening in the current scene of the thing. But back then there was no parity between us and any of the top level teams. It was show up and hope not to get 5-0.
Right.
Um, and then, like I said, that DC match on Hill 400, that we lost 2-3, getting solid pressure, and I think that was really a turning point for this community.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that was fun. Um, let's see. I know the interviews that we was say we will talk about get all the drama stuff out of the way. I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I guess let me see which one was. Let's see. We talked about the player that had played in the seasonal.
yep. So
Um,
that was an administrative fault. There was a ticket submitted on it from the outside organization. It got put to a vote on whether we should remain in it, and the decision was like, I want to say it was like, well, the remaining teams like 10 yes to remain in, 2 no, and with the understanding that that player would not be allowed to play in any more games for that seasonal.
right. And
And
then
since then, that player who we shall not name, but that player, if you go back through the team reps channels, it'll be up there way back. But that player has continued to play with us all the way up until I think he was in this weekend's match. So
he's a good dude.
yeah,
Um, So then I guess we can move on to the Hilo. That was a pretty juicy one.
That was I feel I need to owe T-Rod. That was a very interesting day for our con or our Discord.
Yeah.
Um, once again showed a different side. So where I kind of talked about the administrative PTO taking day and seeing how I was getting so consumed with the administrative side of the game. That day showed a different side of the HL community, which backing up. So Hilo, when it first came out, I actually, was running the podcast. I helped promote it, was working with the developers, giving suggestions. In fact, and we were like, dude, let's report all these games on here. So from a team perspective, we were, I think at the time, we had the most games reported on Hilo. Um, I remember that busy summer. And was all about it because I liked it. Because at this time, like there wasn't there was just starting to be these other tournaments popping up, right? And well, how does one tournament rank to another tournament? I was all about. They showed I like anything that gives spreadsheets, math, quantitative value. Um, and then they changed and said, well, we want to go down to the individual level, and for squad light battles and things of that nature. And to me, that and to a few other guys, individual stats kind of created like a dark side. Like I saw what they did in World of Tanks with your XVM rating, and we don't recruit you unless you have the 1700 elo or exactly, and we won't even talk to you and your shit. I'm a newcomer, and it creates a stratification of players that in a game like HLO, I was actually like very relieved that it didn't have that and didn't have tickets and didn't like, kills are important, KPM is important, but there's these soft stats and smart decision that don't always show up. And, we resisted it and we said, hey, we don't think this is a direction that Hilo should be going. And I had conversations, and there was public with the developers, private, and there was public ones that people were expressing. And they said, "Hey, we hear you, we appreciate your feedback, but this is the direction we're going." And I said, "Okay, we would like to not be part of Hilo anymore." And they said, "Well, that's not an option. Once you're in, you're in." And we're like, uh, like, how is that type deal? And they're like, well, we can't have a scoring if one team doesn't participate, so you have to be in, and this is what they're going to do. But we have now set up a system where individual players can opt out, right? And I was like, trying to talk to him. Was like, well, could it be opt in? We went back through a couple weeks. And finally, after it went live, I had a community meeting, and we tell everybody like, "Hey, here's the system." Most of our people didn't even know what Hilo was, right? Um, if you want to opt out of it, you have to go to this website and you have to give your Steam ID and you got to do this and yada yada yada. And told the process that the developers gave to us. Um, After that meeting, I don't. It was just to say that's when the the D Day, if you will. Um, they got I guess, a GDP or some privacy indication. I don't know if it was one of our members, but I think it would be naive to think it wasn't one of our members, right? Because the timeline. Hey, I have it up here. They reviewed it. Um, and I did have one of our guys say, "Hey, I have concerns about this." I relayed that to developers that night, but in the morning, it had action, and the the developers, put out a message said, "Hey, this is a concern of ours. We have to respond to this. Um, you know, Inchon over at Esprit let us know this type deal, but we don't know if it was Esprit." Once again, I think it's naive to think if it wasn't our guys, but I'm not going to go around and be like, "Hey, who tried to do this?" Right? As the leader of Esprit, I have to take responsibility for everything that does or doesn't happen
Hmm.
in our community. And even though I don't have concrete evidence that was ours, I also, like I said, it just looks like it. So They reached out to us. So everybody came to our Discord, and I think it was like the view that a spree was trying to attack the larger HL community, and that was not the case. We just wanted to keep that local bar mentality, right? Like we don't want people um, rating our players for squad line battles that we don't participate in, or we want to keep this as a team level. And the amount of obscene material that was posted basically caused, and one of our admins on that, everybody that joined the Discord that day, we just we banned, we blocked, we deleted their stuff. I got with the developers. The developers were seeing what was going on. They tried to plead with the people, like, please don't grab your pitchforks. Like, this isn't the reaction we want. But the toothpaste was already out of the tube, right? And you can't put that back in. They were kind enough, I got on a voice call with them. We talked on a solution. They acknowledged that, hey, there was a gap that they had to resolve, and they worked with it, resolved it, and put Hilo back online. Um, so um, much like the HLTC kind of like moving, is that the way that I would have wanted us to, you know, find a gap in Hilo, or, interact with it? No. Um, but the internet moves fast. Like I remember waking up and just it was already done by the time I like woke up, type deal. So they were nice enough to allow me to post into the Hilo message. If you go up in the announcements, you'll see I'm the only like non-Hilo developer that has an announcement up there. But I think that hurt our reputation at the greater HL community, because it just seemed like, to their credit, the Hilo developers, that, the amount of work they've put into that is huge. It's a huge undertaking, and to try to give a quantitative value to such a nebulous thing, like who's better, who's not at Hilo, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. And so, for Soxes and Floridian, what they did, it's credit to them. But we never had an intention, just like HLTC. I never had an intention to take anything away from Hilo. We just didn't want to be involved with it. So after they went to individual points.
Right.
So yeah, that was an interesting day.
So moving on from there, I guess the next big drama or dramas were the cheating, the cheaters, or alleged
Yeah, so
hacking.
yeah, so I think the two biggest kind of lightning rod names are like Epson and Airbags, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so especially after the seasonal where we had an administrative error, we like really strict more on or it became a much more strict recruiting process. Like we no longer openly recruited. We put 3 weeks. We observe people in admin cams. We review them, things of that nature. And for the two people, so for Epson, he came from one of those smaller communities and performed well, played with us for a while, and like other players, we saw an increase in his skill set, right? Once we showed him how to get on roofs and do the stuff and hedges and all the, kind of tricks and trades of comp players, he started putting up some serious numbers. Um, and there was a review done back to kind of the Hilo stats, where people saw his numbers when he first started with us in matches, and then saw where he was um, uh, with us, and basically said this is too much of a night and day difference type deal. Now he never played in any seasonal with us, but just in scrimmages, people were like, hey, you guys have a cheater. Like we're reviewing them, we don't see anything. And the kind of mob mentality, uh, really became like a loud voice. Now, here's the fun about sitting in my home, here in Tennessee, is I have to start with a position of trust with a lot of the guys, and he Epson relayed a message that he got a phone call on his personal phone regarding HLL and the accusations against him, and it freaked him out, right? So he stopped playing the game. Um, he let us know. He said there was a police report filed, and he just kind of like he's like, dude, I gotta take a break from this. And we're like, fine, right? But we're at that time, we were trying to respond. Uh, we didn't see anything that was overly suspicious. I mean, back with Scapsuka, right? We went through all the drama with Scapsuka cheating, all the drama with Shaka Zulu, is he cheating? Valhalla, is he cheating? All these guys, right? So it was just like another one of those things that, hey, record your gameplay, we'll provide it up, keep running. You're going to be, and keep showing people, run Moss, blah blah blah. And then he just like he gave this story and he disappeared, right? And this was the first occasion of whether he did it. It also kind of gets back to airbag, but I'll tie both these up. So airbags um, also came from a smaller community that was not as prestigious, but he was well known in the North American community. And especially in the 18v18 scene, we always saw him performing well above his peers at the community he was at. Um, when a few of his peers came over to join us, airbags came with us, and we're like, "Hey, buddy, your name's going to get blasted. Your other regions don't necessarily know your name. Record your gameplay. Be ready because we just got done with this with the other guys. Be ready to do this because the accusations are going to come out." And sure enough, last seasonal, it happened. It didn't happen on the Purple Heart game when he got blown up over and over again. But I don't think anybody ever gets caught or accused of cheating on Purple Heart when Artie's got like 400 kills.
Yeah.
like, um, but there was this game against DC on Utah, and there was an admin cam that was questionable. So, in trying to provide good faith, we're like, hey, good. Yeah, look, we got his recording already right here. Like, we could present this and we're ready to respond to this. Um, much like handing somebody a resume, right? You hand 3 people a resume, you're going to get 5 different opinions. So when we gave the recording out, it questioned a lot more, or it raised more questions than it answered. And so the organizers got involved and said, hey, we want to sit down with airbags and we want to review this with him one by one. So Airbag sat down with the organizers, with our team captain at the time, and they went through the full video with him, and said, "All right, go through your decision making. How'd you know this? How'd you do this?" And I think the takeaway is it was inconclusive. There was moments that were questionable. There was other moments that weren't, but it was inclusive. But to provide that confidence, the organizers requested that he provide a independent camera observing his monitors and keyboard that would watch his gameplay to clear his name. And he's like, okay, I'll set this up. He was showing his rigs, hey, I got this GoPro. Is this fine? And we work with the organizers. And then a major life event happened for him, as he relayed. And as somebody that's gone through that life event, also, I can tell you that you should focus on that and not a video game. And so he did. Now the timing around Thanksgiving, so be it, right? It's on there. Was there maybe some not desire to play the game with all these extracurricular things that he had to do that he was agreeing to? Yes, maybe, possibly, I don't know. We wanted to roster him to allow him to provide this evidence. He wasn't able to make a few of the matches. He showed evidence that he wasn't able to make the matches. We provide that evidence to organizers, But eventually, especially coming off the Epson thing, and wanting to maintain the integrity of the team, we consciously told him, like, "Look, dude, we're not gonna roster you for any of the playoff matches, like, don't even sign up," type deal. Like, if we can't have confidence of you during the regular ones, we don't wanna question we don't wanna bring into question these other ones. So, we went through the seasonal, we didn't roster them, and then after season, we basically said, "Hey, I know what's going on in your life, but this is something that we have to protect the other members of this community on, or at least try to defend. And we're giving you 30 days. You have to run a match, play in a match with us. You have to take the time. You have to take a prioritize. You got to one match. You got to run it with the camera. You got to do all these conditions that the organizer said. If not, we're going to remove you from the roster." And so that didn't happen. Talked to him. He understood. We removed him from the roster, removed him from the Discord, just like Epson's removed from roster, removed from Discord. So, with that said, both of those guys, I understand the perspective from the outside looking in. I understand that said, wow, that's very convenient, right? That we gets questioned and then a crazy story happens or a life event happens. And do I have an ability to verify that? Do I have to trust them? I, I take it for the face value, but I also understand, like I said, the outside perspective, and that's why for both those individuals, we've distanced ourselves from them. If Airbags or Epson does come back and is able to provide an outside camera with that view and show it on there, then we'll they'll have to do that independently, because for each one of those individuals, there is a amount of trust and that they have to regain back with the leadership in this community, the players in this community, because of all the things, like, we've had players that we've kicked out of our recruiting process because we don't feel confident in them. We've had a player that oh, my brother logged on, and that's all of a sudden why I started getting all the good, that we kicked out of the community. Like, no, dude, this is clear you're hacking it in Garrisons and whiskey. Like, we're done. Even before it gets into seasonal. So we do try to police our own. Um, those two, though, are like I said, Epson never played in a seasonal match. Airbags did. Airbags is the most recent one, so he gets a lot of attention. Um, but that's the I don't know if anybody gets the Paul Harvey, but that's the rest of the story.
So, do you have any personal opinions on whether you believe they were or weren't?
Um, I don't for I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't have evidence to say that they weren't, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that there is multiple people that we get into our community that come from these, other teams, that all of a sudden, when they're surrounded by high quality individuals, like a rising tide lifts all ships type of situation, right? That they feel more loose, the game comes quicker to them, and, when they feel like they gotta do everything, they just they don't perform as well. All of a sudden, when they feel like, "Hey, all I gotta do is shoot," they get much more in the element and their skill does increase. So, could that be a contributor to all of a sudden why they did that, along with working with Polo Loco and all the other guys that, right, show you how to get into hedges on rooftops and all that stuff. Yeah, I think there's an explanation on why somebody does better in our community than in their previous one, right?
Right.
Um, um, I For Airbags, we felt confident enough at the time to go to the evidence with organizers, to sit down with the organizer, spend our time to allow him to defend himself and allow us to defend our community and one of our members. The Epson one, that one was a little, we didn't go to the lengths that we did with Airbags. It was kind of, well, organizers weren't involved. Um, but that one was just, uh, as he's kind of come in and out, there's been some dots that I would like connected a little bit more solid for that. Um, I think there's enough questions that support our decision to not have them in our Discord and not have them in our community. So,
Right.
is that vague enough? Yeah. Like at a certain point, it doesn't matter, what I think individually, because if it hurts the community, that's the decision to make, right?
Yeah.
So it's like my wife; she doesn't want my opinion. But, so yeah, that's I was gonna say we have this a two-parter, so there's positives on there, but I was gonna say the current, it's interesting, and the like this year, the 2024 edition is, poaching that we're all of a sudden. It's kind of funny because for the last, for the first 2021, 22, 23, we were a place that really, if you were a top level player or whatnot, you didn't think about going to a spree.
Hmm.
Um, this year, after being in the finals, I guess we became a little bit more attractive whether it's just the stability or what other reasons. I've talked to individual members and each one kind of has their own reason. But this is the first one that we've had, um, high level players actually reach out to us, from multiple communities and multiple regions. And it's put a lot of pressure, right? I think when you get those high level players, experienced players that are looking for a place to win the seasonal, the prestigious, tournament, it puts a little bit more pressure on that. But one of my favorite parts of that is they come in and they're like, "Wow, this isn't what I thought it was." Right from the outside looking in, this
Hmm.
place is a little different. And that's a it's where we really don't talk about other teams. There's a it's we try to keep it very positive. Um, we'll be transparent with our guys. We'll be honest with them, and we'll respect their time. And there's not we're not looking for Patreons. We're not looking to brand. We're not trying to make any money off of any players, and that's different than some other communities. So
I guess to like kind of tie up I guess the drama of Esprit, there was a couple of questions as to why I guess Esprit compared to other comp teams seems a bit more reclusive and more. Well, I guess that reclusive is just kind of the word to use. Is there like reasons for that?
I think it goes back to the HLTC when we split off from there. I told that leadership that they can have the narrative, right? We were not going to um, we were not going to make noise, type deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so. There was part of that. I think there was also the idea that kind of the characteristics of myself, and a lot of our leaders, that what's the best thing that we can do with our gaming time is mostly play the game, not play the internet. And and after kind of going through that, and going through the consuming a day of PTO and the Hilo thing, like I think it kind of turned us off from the louder, more public perspectives
Mm-hmm.
of HL, and focused us more on the smaller one-on-one relationships. So like you mentioned, like mentoring, 75th, Vanguard. We've done a lot of these, reach out type deals. Hey, here's our strats, here's our structure, here's how we approach things. Let us know that stuff we do more one-on-one, that isn't as public type deal.
Right.
um and um I, I think, for like I said, for a lot of ours, if 24 hours in a day, what would you rather do with your gaming time? Well, let's play the game.
GG's, boys.
So
Yep, GG.
Yeah. I was always thankful for that time in Otters when you I think it was you and Excel came over after that Utah match because we were all like brand new and um, I believe that was right after the 3 RD gun meta got nuked. So
Yeah.
I came in and I think I asked you to just go hard on us, like use all the cheese that you have and whatnot, because like we needed to see what the like top level was, but you ended up taking it easy on us, and it was still only a 45-minute game. But
Well, I know for, like, a lot of teams, like, when we this was, like, 22, 23, going back to that core match when we got just blindsided in 26 minutes, we didn't even know how to improve, like, we just knew we had to, right? So we tell teams like, "Hey, play us, right? We're not gonna bring our own ones in, but after the match, we're gonna show you the strat that we just used. We're gonna show you the structure. We're gonna show you approach, and we're gonna walk through it one on one." And um, like it goes back. I don't need to take away from somebody else to make ourselves better. In fact, I want the HL comp scene to get bigger, and it is getting bigger, right? But the hardest part, I think, for a lot of teams is to break through that level of frustration of, hey, like, first off, organizing 49 people, which is really trying to, organize 70 to get a 49-man roster is just enough work in itself. But then to actually implement it into a 90-minute match or up to a 90-minute match, and then understand all the variables that can happen across it. There's no other game like HL Comp that I know of right now. But if you're new to it and you don't understand
Brittany,
all the,
how engineering did you get
variables, it can just seem so overwhelming, and then this
yeah,
mountain to climb that just you just don't have the stamina for. So that's why we've gone out to, I would say, probably about a dozen teams and said, "Hey, let's do that." I mean, with when 13th Legion and Void were starting out, we did the same thing for them. Just and it really it led to GXV, which led to Helios, which has been awesome. They've been really good. It's
1 second. So would you like to kind of go over like some of the things that Esprit has accomplished over the years, or like the growth and everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's this is kind of the fun part. So, like, the interview is like, hey, there's the fun part about Esprit, and then the fun, like, just like my own individual contributions as just a player of this, my last 4 years of playing this game outside of Esprit. But I think for Esprit, I mean, just being together for 3 years is is an accomplishment unto itself. I think I go a little bit longer, and it's lasted more, farther than my first marriage. But my first marriage was found out the best thing for my first marriage was me going away every 6 months and killing somebody, then coming back. But that's a whole separate topic. Uh, but yeah, no, that we've had. We talk about 2023. Our retention is just so good. I mean, we there's natural attrition of people leaving the game or whatnot, but I want to say I could probably look it up, but 50 of our players have over 60 comp matches with us. And if you drop that down to 40, I want to say it gets up to like 60 or 70 players that have 40 matches in our structure, running different roles, different positions, and getting to that decision making that is as the whole team, right? Like there has been multiple times that we have beaten better teams than us because we have 50 individuals making one decision and not, um, you know, 50 decisions trying to be made by individuals. Um, so that's been awesome to see, and it's I think I don't know how public it's known. Here in about a month, I'll order another poker chip. Every year, I send a poker chip to all our guys with a handwritten note thanking them, and just my best memory of them for that year, or funny anecdotal story or something.
Hmm.
And to me, that the feedback that I get from that of something physical coming, a physical token, if you will, coming out of the digital community has meant a lot. Um, we've gone within the first year, nuclear. We went down to Camp Currahee, which is Band of Brothers fame, 3 miles up, 3 miles down, and just through gaming, like we helped clean up graffiti at Camp Currahee. It's just gamers like, hey, let's go do this. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Just a couple months ago, we did our first meetup. God, was it like 25 Esprit players from? We had one of our European players flew over. We went down to New Orleans, went through the World War II museum. I got to cook dinner, with our guys. Like it was a very, they say that kind of like dad Inchon moment. But as guys are coming in, we got this, Verbo. We rented out this house, had it all to ourselves. And as guys are coming in, you don't recognize the face and they talk, and you're like, "Oh, dude, you're player A and you're player B. Like, this is awesome, dude. I'm cooking up some tacos right now. Grab yourself one." We had some drinks, go through the World Museum. Like that was probably one of the highlights of my gaming career. And especially like all the bond that all the bonds that we have for better. Because for a lot of players, we spend a good amount of time with gamers, probably some more than we spend with real life friends.
Hmm.
And to create that, to actually see them in person, and share a beer, share a laugh, share another beer, some whiskey, poker game. Anyway, it was fun, right? It was really good. But and then I've my job takes me across America. I would say all said and done, I've probably met about 50 of our members across the spree.
That's
Uh,
insane.
yeah, and you just sit down, and it's like, the first time you meet one of the guys that you game with, it's kind of like the most like awkward, like familiar blind date, because you're like, oh, dude, you're like the first time I met Fortress, right? Like Fortress, I met up with him, and then like Rando had been in the community for 2 weeks. He's like, yeah, sure, dude, I'll go out to dinner with you. So it was like the three of us, and dude, we just talked gaming, we talked life. It was like a Discord conversation, but over some oysters and some great beer and whiskey. So but yeah, that's to me, that's really, like as esprit de corps as a term, is really means that kind of like brotherhood, right? That internal morale. And outside of all the noise and drama, and even the comp matches are experiences that really help build those relationships. And when you're able to meet someone, or go through, and just or talk, it really puts a lot more meaning into what we do outside of just playing a video game. I mentioned how I think one of the biggest things hurt from HLTC was the time going through COVID on the
Hmm.
HLTC. But there is guys that, be in the position of the head bartender. I don't like to think myself as a leader. I am definitely the fall guy, but and some of it rightly earned. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to get out of it, right? Some of it, I'm surprised. I like some of these stories; they're creative. I get told relay them, or I read them, and I'm like, okay, let's jump in. I'm gonna build garrisons. But it, something like, God, we just had a member have so many births over the last 3 years. We've had deaths. I mean, when my mom passed just recently, um, jumping online, getting into a game was the best thing I needed, right? Um, we've had members go through some just horrible real life situations, and they don't even let me know till after the fact that it happened, and this community was there for them, and we just didn't even know it, right? But just being a place of like that local bar, that digital bar you can jump on, you can game with someone. It's, you can ask for advice, Excel jokes that you're gonna get Nvidia stock prices. Like, we got a lot of financial advice. We got a lot of PhDs, lawyers, like, actually a lot about professionals
Oh
play this
yeah,
game.
we definitely have the lawyers, man.
We got the lawyers. Um,
Hilo
you know,
lawyers. Huh?
well, yeah, that was right. We've never had a lawyer. We've never. That was gonna say, that one was interesting. I anyway, but And I generally believe, like, when you look at the greater HL community, that 95% of us would all have a great time if we met up for a beer, right? We met up for a beer, we went to go play laser tag, we went to go see a movie, whatever, right? You want to put on a Band of Brothers marathon? We're there, we're having a good time. Um, and it's kind of interesting that, like, for most players, these kind of stories of drama and faults and infractions, either realized or perceived, it's almost taught, right? Because when someone's coming new into the game, they're just like, "Hey, man, this game's awesome." Same way as I had. They're like, "Down here, oh, and I find myself playing on this server often. I'm starting to recognize some of the names. Oh, this server has a community. Let me join that community. Oh, this community plays comp. Awesome. There's other people that play this. Oh, well, tell me about those other people. Oh, they're the good guys. They're the bad guys." And they start to hear these stories, and before you know it, there's infractions, like I said, that are passed down via generation of HL players, right? And before you know it, if you would have joined Community A, you probably would have loved Community A. But now that you join Community B and they're telling you about Community A, you think they're the worst thing. And it's an interesting kind of human element, and it's not unique to gaming, right? There's a lot of, you know, uh, nations, religions. I mean, it's very much a human thing, which I think is interesting the way it plays out in the video game community. But for the most part, like I said, 95% of these guys I would love to have a beer with. So,
Right. So let's talk about the podcast a little bit. What got you to start doing that?
yeah, so the podcast was going back to HLTC. They were looking to create content. There was a very much content-driven community. And at the time, dev briefs were coming out. We always wound up talking about content. New patches were coming out like every 2-3 months. And I was just like, dude, I'm like, we're always talking about this Discord. Let me do the typical white middle-aged thing and create a podcast. you know and so I reached out, and Digi Shadow, right? And I was just, dude, I love Digi's energy. This guy's awesome. Brought up to the idea to him. We got with Jungo. He worked out some artwork for us, really gave it that professional touch. Maury was like, "Hey, I can help you up with the technical side, do post," and it literally just came together, and that was like the HLTC community was just like, "Hey, I have this idea," and people were like, "Yeah, let's do it, man." And we did 19 episodes. I still have episode 20 written, but we didn't do it. And I really enjoyed it. It was some great fun. But when Maury left the game, just he got changed time zone. He was in Germany. He got a new job, changed his sleep habit. He wasn't able to do it. Um, it left post production to me, and I hate post production. And as Esprit, like I started in HLTC, Esprit started ramping up, and then also my son, we started doing more activities with him. It was, one of those things like, "Hey, I don't got time to do all this stuff, so I'm going to choose my son over this podcast." Um, and that's kind of what caused, there was no official, like, this is our last episode. I think I will do one more episode when I decide to hang up this game. I can tell you, I'm still having fun with the game. I'm 5,000 hours into it. I think there's no better alternative on the market right now, and I don't know. I've been in it for 3 years. I don't know if I'm going to do it for another 3 years, but I'm still having fun with the game. So I'm still here. And if you ever want to talk, jump into Discord and let's talk. It'll be an impromptu Hell Let's Talk podcast.
And then I think you mentioned a new player guide as well.
Yeah. So
What
that
all would
was
that
one.
entail?
So that was another area where, talking about just like the greater HL community, how awesome it is. That was really one that I was able to work with so many great individuals. So one of the biggest critiques about HL is that there's the onboarding process, or the learning curve is just so steep. While it might be not as high as other games, it's steep. And instead of looking to, add to the voices that said this is an error, let's see if we can't do something. So, I put out a call to all the people I knew, that I respected their opinions on HLTC. And General T did the tanking section, Nuclear did the artillery section, all these voices, and then I got with Mosca. And at the time, Mosca was coming on to the podcast, kind of introducing his cartoons, which are just awesome. And like, God, the HL community was just like we had Wild Bill Jammy making great YouTube content that was witty and poignant, and then Mosca making these kind of political satire cartoons that just hit the nail on the head. And I mean, they were coming out, and in working with these guys, Mosca's like, dude, I got this idea. He's like, hey, I'm between commissions right now. I've got the time. And he just started like, he's like, if you give me the content, I could put it in there. We worked with him and we released, we wanted something written that just wasn't a video, because I think there's so much stuff that um, is better seen visually. And I remember, when I started gaming and whatnot, like, you used to take your CD out, right, and put it in your ROM, and while the game was loading, you would read the new play you would read the manual, right? And those manuals were like, that was your exposure to the game, and that was your first introduction, was the manual that you were flipping through. You didn't read every page, right? But you're like, "Oh my god, look at this art, look at this, like, the humor in here and things." So I really kinda wanted to make something like that. And so that's the vibe we were going with. And Mosca embraced it. He improved it. All the writers on it was great, and then we released it, and it was a great success. And oh God, I want to say we had 12 different languages that different HL players reached out to. Is like, dude, can I translate it into Portuguese? Can I translate it into German? Can I translate this? And so we had all these multinational players join this Discord, and literally we were making out multiple translations for all these different communities. And then what was really the awesome part is the developers reached out to us and said, hey, would you guys be willing to sign, non-disclosure agreements? And we're like, yeah, don't know what it's for. And then they came out and said, hey, we're releasing a console version of this game. We want you guys to change this into a console version. So they gave us all the key mappings for it, the same concepts. And for that one, actually, um, you know, they actually commissioned Mosca for a good chunk of change. So and then we gave all the proceeds to Mosca since he was doing a lot of the heavy lifting
Hmm.
for it. But that was really awesome to have that type of interaction with the developers and have something recognized by the developers. And that's probably something we should update, although the core concepts are still the same.
Right.
So, but yeah, that new player guide was that was really really good.
Is there any players from the Esprit community that you'd like to shout out?
Um, yeah, I would say, I mean, obviously, we talked about a couple of the founding members. One of the biggest reasons for success, I think, for Esprit and that growth really comes down to our comp leaders. So, like, the structure of Esprit is really, we are comp focused. So, our comp leader he makes the strats, he makes the decisions, and we let him focus on that. And T Raw took the first one. He handed it off a better situation to three, who handed it off a better situation to Excel, who's currently it. And what Excel's been able to do has been awesome. So really, those three have allowed me to focus on the just the making sure the beer is cold, right? And a big shout out to them. General T had a lot of his influence on our culture, the way we do approach, after actions and just the general thing. General T has been awesome on that one. But Shaka Zulu, Dash also. Some of our Dash already set up our original recruiting structure. The mentor Shaka coming in with his even head, our lawyer, and awesome fridge.
Yeah.
Uh, yep. And then
And he is Shroud of Hell Loose too. That was also another meme that you
yeah,
guys.
yeah, that was yeah. We thought that was going to be humorously received. It turns out it was not. So
Yeah, I heard the story about that too, which I'll save that for his interview because I'm gonna ask him about it, and hopefully he doesn't mind. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought
I
it
mean,
was funny.
I remember. Like, I don't want to take any thunder, sail on his wins for that story. But I remember he kind of floated a few ideas, and we went with Shroud. We're like, dude, go Shroud, man. They'll be like, they'll see the humor in it, blah blah blah. And yeah, that was not good. But also Digi Shadow being another one of Moz, and I mean, I could listen on here, but I go back to just everybody, so many members that have been with us for like years, right? That's it's very very humbling to be able to share time with those guys, and to share like with a larger HL community. I'll give a shout out to Gem 82nd AD, what he's done over there with those guys, and the roller coaster that he's had. I mean, if you look at legacy pillars of the HL community, uh, 82nd AD and WTH, they've been doing it better and longer than anybody else. Um, 116th has, and the German scene when they were in the shadow of core, they kept plugging away. Um, they've always been a great baseline for us to kind of match with, and I feel like we kind of are two race cars that kind of start in the back, and we're drifting each other as we have head up. So um, yeah, externally I give it out to that, and then the organizers of all communities or all tournaments. That is a thankless job, and that's that's a workload unto itself, and I don't think those guys are able to play the game more than they're able to administer the game. So hopefully they get back to the equal balance for that. But yeah.
And then I guess moving on to like more present times, like towards the end of this, um, I think we've talked about the state of the comp scene, and I think we're pretty close on agreeing on everything. I used to be a doomer myself with the game, especially with the LL main update and all that. But to me, the devs have kind of made a full turnaround, and I think they really learned from their mistakes after the LL main update because they kind of released that one without testing it or anything. They kind of just threw it out there, and it did end up breaking a bunch of stuff. But now they've kind of switched back over to doing the public testing and getting community feedback and stuff. And it's kind of been on that upwards trend, especially with the Game Pass. And now the game has, like, on average, more players than it did, like you were just showing me on that graph, back in like 21 and 22. And
Yeah, I think, and I think a lot of us look towards the previous years of HL almost like with ruby colored glasses. And granted, whether it's hard to separate our personal enjoyment with the game from the actual game's quality, right? So, like, when you get in the game, you're like, "Dude, this is awesome. I'm sitting to wait till 3 a.m. This is the greatest thing ever." It didn't mean the game was not without faults then, right?
mm-hmm.
And it didn't mean that there wasn't another veteran, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes, that's got 2,000 hours in the game, who's not saying the same thing then that our veterans are saying now. That the game's not designed for comp, it's doing this, and those have been like, it's funny, if you go back to Mosca's cartoons, they still hold true today. If you go back to Wild Bill's videos, they still hold true to today. Um, but yet there's something in the way 49 players organize to get on these maps that is still a pull for so many of us. And when you have that like good HL game, especially on the comp scene, and I'm not saying like a 5-0 roll, but something that feels challenging but controlled, or maybe you do a Hail Mary play that works out for you, right? When it just clicks, man, it's such a strong, experience. Um, on the flip side, when it all goes wrong, the highs are highs and the lows are lows, right? But I think there's more and more. There's a better player base than we've seen, before, as far as number of players, and I think the Game Pass is a big contributor to that. Is the player base better than it was before? I don't think so. Is it worse? I don't think so. I think it's like the same grievances that we've had with Call of Duty players. No one builds garrisons, yada yada yada. That's been the same since I started learning how important garrisons were, right?
Hmm.
Um, Meanwhile, on the comp scene, though, I think you see more, and I'd be curious to if anybody actually has this across the um, um, entire community, and maybe Hilo would, but to me, it looks like there are more matches being played now than there ever has before.
Yeah.
Uh, there was having an APL, an American Premier League. There was only two American teams, right? There was NBA and HLTC. But now you got, what do we have? Like 12 teams playing the APL. And granted, I know we had some OCE teams that joined in for APL, but you have the APL, you have the ACL or ACL, you have the HCA, you have seasonal. I mean, there's just so much more happening. Um, and while the seasonal isn't picking up, or back to its peak of 32 or 34 teams, I forgot right off the top of my head. Um, there's still a lot of comp being played. And to me, we go back to, there's always been kind of this tiered system of like upper echelon teams, mid range teams, and then casual teams looking to get into competitive. Um, if you go back to 21, 22, I mean, there was core and WTH, what felt like, right? And they were just leagues above everybody else. Um, Now, and this might be, whether this recording survives in prosperity, at least in this seasonal and in these last couple weeks, we're seeing that much more paper, rock, scissors, lizard, Spock happening, right?
Hmm.
And it's good. And we're seeing a variety of maps, and I think, to your credit, the developers are realizing some of these imbalances. And I honestly believe we can get another 3 years out of this IP. There's nothing that I see on the horizon. Resolve kind of petered out. Um, what other games that were coming that were Burning
Fuck.
Lands?
Yeah, the BDSM Vietnam simulator.
Yeah, that one. Wow,
That was so crazy. That was insane.
wow. You, yeah, that would be an interview just anyway. But yeah, I mean, so there's not a good alternative to this right now, and I might be in the minority in thinking this, but Team 17 bought the intellectual property for this, and they've seen, whether the profitability has come back or whatnot. My hope is that we're not necessarily creating more content for HL on Unreal Engine 4, but creating the next chapter of HL on Unreal Engine 5 and starting with fresh. I know when going through the podcast and the new player guide, I got some pretty candid conversations with the developers, and they kind of acknowledged, like, yeah, when we were starting this out, like, we didn't have this robust configuration management program. We were a Kickstarter, right? And we were just, hey, get it done. And they've shown, HL, I think, has shown that there is this successful niche between, right in the middle between simulator and arcade, that if done right, like HL, can be successful. And I wish that they set it up for the next chapter of HL. Um, Are there gripes that I would like? Yes. Would I like them to, listen more to the comp community? Oh, sure. Everybody wants a little bit more attention, but let's be honest, the comp community, like HL is a niche game, and the comp community is a niche of a niche, right? Um, so I I I get that they're a business, they have to make money. They we are not a large percentage of the player base, and yeah, I hope them the best because being a game developer is no job that I would ever want. I can't think of another job where the people you are trying to provide a service to hate the provider so much as a game developer, right?
Mhm.
Like, I can't imagine, like, "Man, that restaurant is so bad. I'm never eating there again. Where are we going to dinner? We're going to that restaurant just so I can tell them how bad they are." Like, it's just it's such a weird concept between gamer and game developer, that, I really do wish them best. I want them to be successful because they're successful makes my gaming time more valuable.
All right. Well, I guess to kind of close it out, would you like to give any shout outs to anybody outside of Esprit, since you already kind of mentioned all those people?
Yeah, I mean, I said 82nd AD, Jam, the seasonal organizers, Apu's been great. The community Archon, I don't think a lot of people realize how much work has gone into the community Archon and the tool that's able to provide. And all that's been one where the community has really done to me the developer's job for them. The group behind that's been very supportive. Um, and I mean, I'll just generally say like, um, for me, um, I really do believe that this community is one of the best gaming communities there is. The way that we may look to, we might have a difference of opinions on the way we look to implement different rules or different structures. Tournament structures, approaches, tactics, things of that nature. But I honestly, it's like I have a lot of respect for everybody that plays HL competitive. It is their time makes everybody else's times more valuable, and there are some loud critics of maybe myself and definitely of the community, right? But even then, they contribute to I was gonna say it sounds cliche, the tapestry of HL, but they contribute to a live and vibrant community. Um, Now, do I always respond? Do I never respond to them? Yeah, because like I said, I want to jump in and just play the game, but there's definitely a lot of content out there, and given the absence of non-content, I love hearing their voices.
Right.
So thank you, thank you.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I think the only real way to end this would be with a dad joke from you. I think that would
Oh,
be the.
dad joke. Well, I guess dude, I don't know what you think about trees, but I think they're shady.
If any Esprit people are watching this, they're gonna have like PTSD flashbacks of like all the debriefings where we're waiting on Excel or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's it's fun. Video games are fun and they should be fun. So as we'll try to keep them to that. So
Right. All right, man. Well, thank you for coming on, dude. I appreciate it.
no, I appreciate you guys doing this, and looking forward to many more.
Yeah, I'll see. We'll see how long they can go. I've kind of kept them low stress. I really only edit the thumbnail, and then the video itself is just kind of raw upload. So, yeah.
Yeah, don't do what I did with the podcast of cutting in different videos and post production stuff. I mean, it was the actual podcast was great. Drinking with Digi. It's the
Hmm.
post production that was just one. If anybody listens to this and is willing to do post production, I will restart Hell Let's Talk next week. But I don't think more people want to hear my voice. I don't know.
Maybe.
So
You never know.
maybe.
People
So
have made AIs of your voice because they like it so much, or at least maybe that's
there is. So you like this story? There was one broadcast I was doing. I really do want to get back into broadcasting matches because those are just so fun. Like, I don't know if how many people know this, but I'm a high school football official here in East Tennessee. And I love officiating football because you're in there with the game, but you leave the game, right? When the game's over, one team won, one team lost, you get to go home. So like broadcasting, you're in there, you're watching the game live, you're experiencing live, but you can walk away from it. One team win, one team lost. But there was one where I was broadcasting with Mano Especial,
hmm
and I was talking about I think it was 1/16th attacking as SME. What's that bottom point to the bottom right on
Mason.
SME? No, 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 bottom right, all the way back in the
Oh, all the
HQ.
way back.
I don't remember, but you know what I'm talking about. It's got the trench
Yeah.
system off on the west side. So 1/16th just did this perfect combined arms push. And I'm just like, their MGs are like da 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 da. And I think it was Heidi made a video of
I've
like
seen
that.
that, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I showed that to my kids. We probably watched that video 100 times. They're just like, "Look at daddy, he's being funny, blah, blah, blah." So that was, like, one of the coolest things that, like, ever came out of this. My kids got, like, a cool thing, and, like, I remember my son was like, when he went to school, "My dad's on YouTube," and all this stuff, like, that was a hero thing, I'm like, "Oh, okay." But, yeah, no, it's, post-production sucks.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Are we
stay away
still
from it.
recording?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Good times, good times.
I like to have
This is
it's a nice little into the video. Just a nice little
so
jawing.
one of the episodes of Hell Let's Talk, I remember this. It was Heidi. Who was on there? It was Heidi. I think Wild Bill. Who else? But anyway, we got done with the actual show, and then they were still talking. I had to like run and pick up dinner for the family, so I just kept the stream going. And like we ended the recording, but I kept the stream going because we did the show live and then we posted the recording.
hmm
And I came back an hour and a half later, and there was now more people in the stream talking and just like I was like, "What are you guys doing?" And they're like, "We haven't left. We're just bringing in more people." That was one of the craziest like episodes. It was oh god, I'm trying to remember who all was in there, but I think it was like Heidi, Wild Bill jamming. It was a fun thing. The community, like I said, really makes this game what it is.
Right. All right. Well, I guess we can. That'd be a good point to close it out. So,
Indeed.
um, I will see everyone in the next episode.
Take care, guys.